Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, May 12th, 2022, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. Want to go back and take a look and review what happened yesterday. We came into the market, and there were a few levels that we were targeting up above as potential resistance. Remember, we are not expecting any type of bullish breakout. In fact, the expectation was for lower. So we were looking to short the back end of a lot of these key levels. And if you remember back to yesterday's pre-market, if you were here, we marked this major swing low here at 4,000 and 4,075 or 4,003 quarters. I'm not saying 4075, but 4,075 was that major swing low right here. And when we came into the open, we pushed right into that level and we called our first short from there. And that was really the best trade of the morning. Able to get in just a minute into the open there, get short, and you can, if you look at 4,003 quarters here, it only was broken by 1 point. So we're talking very limited risk, um, less than 2 points of risk, and this thing went about 30, 35 points lower. So beautiful trade there. If you didn't get short at that first call, we got the first test of the fast moving average here. That did give you about, I don't know, 10, 20, something like that. We went from about 39.80 down to about 39.67. So just over a 10-point opportunity there. And then there were some kind of shoddy situations here, just maybe 3, 4 points in your favor. And then market started to rip higher. So went against our expectation of a sell-off coming out of the open off of that level. And that's where we called a few longs, or I got long here off 4004. I didn't make the call, but I told you guys that on this pullback to 4004, this could potentially hold for a continuation higher. That's when I hit it there, right when we pulled back to the major eye level and the fast moving average. And then we called another long right here, either off the fast moving average or off the orange power level. Either one was going to be valid. And if you took the long from the fast moving average, the idea was you should understand that it still could have pulled back to the OPL. So you might have had to have a little bit more risk on that first entry. I added once we pulled back into the orange power level, left a little bit more of a wider stop there on that first entry, and we did get a little bit of a pop right off the level. It went just about 12, 13, 14 points higher, and then kind of went sideways. A couple bunk trades over here, expecting another sell-off down below the orange power level. Nothing really came of it, and then I told you guys as we pulled back here, right back to the VWAP, that there was an opportunity there if you wanted to try it. I don't think I actually told you I was going to take the trade, but there was an opportunity there. And look at what happened. We see this happen all the time. The market came up to that level I told you at 4,003 quarters, got a major sell off in the morning. And when the price came back up, broke through, and pulled back to it, not only were we retesting that major rejection level from the morning, but it was also VWAP. So another opportunity. And we see these kind of trades happen all the time, like I said. Either it's a trade like this where you get short and then it busts through and pulls back to that level and the long ends up working out, or the vice versa. We can see the opposite of that, right? Where we're um, bouncing off a level, getting a really nice trade out of the open, and then we sell off, and then the market comes up and retests that level that we bounced from out of the open, and it acts as a strong resistance for a continuation to the downside. So beautiful. That's a beautiful trade setup right there, leading to what, about 4,000 to 4,042, our next major eye level. And then from there we failed. So a nice 40-point trade off of VWAP. Hopefully you can make a little bit of money on a trade like that. And then we just kept trying to get through our minor eye level at 40.42 and just did not have the strength. You see, I called a couple of shorts here as we were pulling back. This trade, assuming you left your stop above the OPL, gave you another 20 points to the downside, right back to 4,003 quarters. So there was 4,003 quarters, bounced once again off that level, and then came right back to 4042, failed, and then you can see that once we broke down below 4,003 quarters, ended up coming up and finding resistance right off of it again. And then from there, we went ahead and sold off going into the lunch hour, and looks like it just continued to sell off. And that's where we find ourselves this morning, down at new lows here, I'm guessing, and we came down to 38.84 3/4. So this is where we find ourselves coming into the open this morning. Let's go ahead and jump up to the 60-minute and see what levels we want to deal with this morning. So just quickly, we'll look at the daily chart here and take a look at yesterday. Another very bearish bar, huge wick to the upside again. And here we find ourselves breaking the lows of yesterday and kind of testing, actually staying below the low of yesterday right now. Don't think there's really much else to mention here other than the fact that we were watching a bearish divergence back on May 4th and going into May 5th. And ever since then, we've sold off, let's say, almost 2,000, about 1,500 points, or I'm sorry, 500 points. So not too bad. Or am I doing my math correctly here? About 300 points. Sorry, I don't know where I got 1,500 from. Hello. So let's go ahead and get into the 60-minute. I just want to look at the 4-hour really quickly here and just mention that we have this major swing low back from May of last year. So a full year ago, we came down right into this 39.95 3/4 level and bounced out. And then that was it. We went all the way up to new all-time highs from there. And right now, the market is breaking below it. So if you look at what's going on from that dotted line here around 39.55, let me get the actual number for you. 39, is that right? 39.50 quarter? Yeah, 39.50 quarter. So right off that swing, you can see we came down, basically found some support there, and now we're breaking down below. So if the market does find some bullish push this morning, that's the first kind of key level I want to see break for any type of faith in continuation even higher. So that's just the only thing I want to mention here on the, actually, I take it back. 39, I'm sorry guys, it's early here. 39.95.75. That's the level. 39.95.75 right here, the major swing. And so as we push back up, we got through this other major swing, bounced off of it and broke down below. We haven't been back up to test that 39.95 and 3/4 level. It actually lines up with some other key levels right there. So let's get into the 60-minute and look at everything else. Got a whole bunch of stuff in here. So coming off of the overnight low, we do have a multiple time frame bullish signal. We did see that yesterday as well. A nice confluence of bullish signals that led to a really nice attempt by the bulls to break out, but it didn't really lead to anything. This morning, same situation. Really nice multiple time frame bullish signal from the overnight low. Do I expect some type of major breakout to come up and break through the high of yesterday and start pushing to higher highs? Absolutely not. I don't expect that, but anything's possible in the market. So if it does, we want to be aware of all these levels that we're going to be pushing up into. And so first things first, you can see right now, the market is attempting to push up into the major eye level at 39.14.50, right? So that's our first area of contention for the bulls this morning. Let's see if we can kind of move this up and make it look less cluttered, because remember, the ranges are so extreme here. that even though a lot of these lines look close together, they're actually pretty far apart outside of these very close clusters. So on this bounce up, we're pushing right into 39.1450. A little bit further from there is the low of the day before. And so those are the two critical levels here to break. Notice we have a nice swing high here right around the previous daily low. If that breaks, we're expecting some type of trouble here right in that pocket that we talked about yesterday, the major eye level being 39.45, and then having those two minor levels on either side at 39.50 and 39.40. That whole area there, notice we have also the close from yesterday sitting there at 39.43. That whole area there, again, another expected trouble spot for the bulls. Now, if they end up ripping up through there, we want to consider the retracement of the day before. So we've got the push down from the high of yesterday down to the low of the overnight session. Um, Another reason why we're targeting this as a contention zone for the bulls is we also have the 38% retracement sitting right there. Add to that we have basically the high of the overnight session, the high for today basically, if you count Globex as um, your your uh, your data sitting right there. So that's going to be really important to get through this morning. And then once that breaks, we've got one level sitting in here before we get up to the next kind of zone or area that I would expect to be trouble. And that is the 50% retracement of this whole leg down. Sitting there right at 39.6750, maybe 39.6775. And like I said, if they get through there, we're right up into this next kind of um, closely knit area of levels. We've got the 61.8 retrace of the whole sell-off from the high of yesterday, right there at 50% of the previous day, our magenta line. We've got 39.97 and that major swing that I told you about, right there at 39.95.75. And then we've got the major eye level at 4,004. So a few things stacked right in there. And then if the bulls can go ahead and rip through there, we've got our 40.23, our 40.42. Remember yesterday, 40.42 was the level that held on two tests for the sell-off down to where we find ourselves this morning. And notice where we're finding support, right at our next minor eye level, right? So from this eye level, sells off right into this eye level for a little peak below it, and now we're bouncing. A little further through 40.42, and we come into our first major retracement level. If you zoom out and look at the whole sell-off, we go ahead and zoom out here, all the way up here. Remember 43.03, our old friend, where we did also get a really nice double test and failure. If you draw a fib all the way down to the lows we just made, our first 38 retracement is right here at about 40.44. And again, it's right there, right by our minor eye level at 40.42, which was that major resistance yesterday. So that's that first area, and then we're right into the high of the day before at 40.50.50 or 40.50 half. A little bit further up, and this is the swing, and let me see if I can zoom back in for you guys. A little bit further through that, and there's this major swing that we've been watching for a day or two here. And that's that level that we kind of peaked in through 2 days ago and failed. And we failed just in front of it yesterday. So maybe not as relevant anymore now that we've basically kind of tested it 2 times roughly and failed. But we want to be aware that it's there. So I'm not necessarily saying a huge expectation for just a major failure off that level, but we just want to be aware of it as price comes back in. A lot of times what we see on our short time frames is maybe not necessarily any type of major failure right off of it like that, but you will see on a short time frame price could peak through it and then pull back right to that level and go ahead and launch higher if we're seeing some type of bullish breakout. So we want to be aware of that. And then a little bit further up brings us to our minor eye level 40.80 and the 50% retracement up at 40.93 and 3/4. I know it's a whole lot of stuff stacked here, but we want to be aware of these levels because these are the most relevant areas that we would expect to see rotations or major reversals. A little bit further up, and we get right up to the 61.8 retrace of the whole sell-off, and that happens to be almost exactly at our major eye level at 41.42 quarter. So these are all the things up above us that I would expect the bulls to have trouble getting through this morning. Remember, my expectation is basically for us to be sideways here or some type of bullish attempt to break out and then a failure and a continuation lower. But just because that's an expectation doesn't mean it has to happen, right? And we could see some break through all these levels, get through 41, 42, and come right back up to test 4,200, and then that pocket we've been talking about for a week or two or however long now, 42.40 to 43, 42.56 to 61, and then we're right back to that 43.03 failure point from last week. So I think that's enough talk about what's up above us. We're about to open here in the next few moments. So on the sell-off, remember all these levels we have below. I talked to you about every day, that every pre-market this week. We talked about all these levels. We talked about it on Monday, and so these are our targets to the downside if the bears do find that strength and get us down through the overnight low at 38.84. And the market just opened, so we're going to be getting down to our short time frames to see what kind of trades we can get out of the open. So have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Have a great one.